He was my father, and he was the first great man I ever met. Of course, I think that's true for any child. The first male person that they meet is usually their father, and I was impressed. He was a pretty traditional fellow. He had a very strong religious ethic. He was a churchgoer. He contributed, to the church. He was monogamous. He married my mother and stayed married to her till he died. They were both from humble beginnings. More so than most, they were both essentially orphans. His mother died when he was born, and his father died when he was 12, and he was shipped off to a not too distant relation in Cincinnati. He was born in Columbus. And my mother was a straight-up orphan. She met my dad, who was working at the gas station up at the corner. He was a pump jockey and a jackleg mechanic, I think is what they called him. So they fell in love, got married, no war broke out. And before he left for the war, he and my mother had a daughter, my oldest sister, and that was in 1941. He was overseas until 1945.
He was gone for 4 years. 4 years. And that, just in the peak of my mom's life, It was awful. Every night we looked at his picture. I can remember that just as clear as it happened yesterday.
He was in an administrative position while he was in the Philippines. He was in a combat zone. I mean, there was always an occasion for snipers or attacks on, their position, their post in the Philippines. So there's that threat.
Mom, she didn't tell a lot, but she said he didn't have a good experience. It was not an easy time. But none of those guys had an easy time.
Yeah.
But when he got home, I think they went to Cincinnati and spent about a week or two together, just by themselves. And then they came home, and it was night. I remember that. And he came in, and I stood up in the bed and said, "Hi, Daddy." And it was I just can see that just as clear as day. Daddy was home.
The sacrifices that they were used to making at that point in time, coming out of the Depression and World War II, sort of formulated their approach to raising a family. He had an interesting philosophy, which was, if you can't afford it, you don't want it.
We didn't know we were poor.
No.
We really didn't. And just everything was okay. It really was. Yeah. We found out later how poor we were. And we changed our names and moved.
From the military on, he worked for the government. He worked for the Veterans Administration and ultimately for the Internal Revenue. So they both, worked really hard their whole life. And, they certainly weren't going to let their kids, screw up their little mission, so they kept an eye on us and made sure that we did what we were, towed the line and adhered to all society's principles and laws and rules and regulations. But at the same time, we had a lot of fun. I mean, we took vacations together.
Oh, the first came to mind was New York.
Okay. Well, yeah. Tell me about that one.
Well, that was the longest ride ever.
Oh my God! Are we there yet? We're at the end of the driveway.
Well, this one slept the whole time.
Oh God, it was just endless.
Of course, you didn't have air conditioning.
None.
And all I remember is him flipping ashes out the window and having them fly back on me.
And I also remember one of you guys had to go to the bathroom and he said, "Can't you hold it?"
And that was when you wanted to buy a sweater. He didn't care if you found a diamond sweater for 50 cents. You weren't getting it.
I mean, it was an adventure. It was a lot of fun. sort of like National Lampoon's Vacation. He had a good sense of humor. He was just a nice person to have around, or to be around.
And a lot of people I talked to, after he died, friends of his and stuff, they loved him. They thought he was like funny and the life of the party, and always there with a joke. And he was. I mean, he was a funny guy. He had a great sense of humor.
He didn't preach.
Yeah, he never said anything. And he could have, too, because he had a really crappy life.
Yeah, he did.
But his attitude was, someone told him that they want more for their kids, better life or something. He goes, you made it through yours, what do you want for them, You survived yours. There was nothing wrong with that.
When I was 10 years old, I got hit by a car and ended up in the hospital. And it was quite a trauma for the whole family. Well, his first reaction was, I'm going to get the kid a TV. Because if I was going to stay in the hospital, I had to have in traction. I couldn't get out of bed, couldn't go to the bathroom. I had nothing. So he bought me, one of the first portable televisions. He was always there for me during that time. Both of them. I mean, they took me to see my brother's Little League baseball games, and that was really hard for him. He wasn't a big man. He was only about 5'9", but he was, strongest guy I knew. And he'd pick me up in my body cast and carry me out to the car and put me in the car and take me to the ball game. And then they'd do the same thing, take us to the drive-ins. And we go to the drive-in, as a family. He had a station wagon and opened up the back end, and I just lay there and watched the movies,
And he never, missed a play or a school thing. He was there. He worked a lot. When I was younger, he had 2 jobs. He worked nights, but it didn't deter him from going to the things that were important.
He said some profound things to me on a personal level, where his passion was. And his passion was his family, his wife.
I remember when I was a kid, they wouldn't pass each other without a hug or a pat or a kiss. They were very affectionate, openly affectionate.
If they had a fight, I don't remember
No, we
it.
didn't know it.
They drank and smoked. That was a given, I think, a stress reliever for that generation. He had malaria when he was in the Army, and that kind of did him in later on in life. He died of a genetic disorder called hemochromatosis, which is the failure of all your internal organs due to an overabundance of iron in your blood. And it was aggravated by the malaria and then, of course, the drinking. I think I did say everything I wanted to say to him before he died. I got in to see him before he died, and I told him, how much I liked him and how much I respected him. And, I got closure with him, but I think I'd like to tell him, what a class act he was, and how much I did respect the fact that he was his own man, and how much strength he had, strength of character, and and to thank him for just modeling it to me and not preaching it to me. I think that was the just to tell him that he did a good job, and that I was proud of him. Yeah.